Alright, what do I got for you guys today? We're going to be reading from Sources of the American Republic. This book's from the 60s. We're going to be reading part of an essay by Charles Francis Adams, and the essay is titled Bull, Bear, and Company, The Robber Barons. It was written in 1869, so right after the Civil War, and that's important. A little bit of context. Charles Adams is the son of John Quincy Adams, and John Quincy Adams is the founder of the anti-Masonic Party, which in the 1820s and 30s was the first third party in the United States. So think about that. The first third party in our country was founded on the single platform of anti-free masonry. And Charles, his son, definitely carries on the tradition. So keep that Masonic aspect in mind, and then also realize what we're about to read is right after the Civil War, and the social fabric of half our nation was just destroyed, basically. And what you're about to hear is basically Charles predicting the future. So let's start. It's only a couple paragraphs. We're talking about robber barons, the Gilded Age, corporations, that stuff. So, one leading feature of these developments, however, is from its political aspect especially worthy of the attention of the American people. Modern society has created a class of artificial beings who bid fair soon to be the masters of their creator. Let's take a pause there. He's talking about the corporation, and we're not going to go into too much detail, but you've probably heard of how in America they've created sort of an invisible identity for everybody with a slave number and your name written in all caps, right? Well, basically, that's called a body corporate. It's an imaginary being. And a corporation is also a body corporate. And that's why corporations have some rights that are shared by individuals in this country. So when Charles Adams is talking about creating a class of artificial beings, he's not only talking about corporations like Walmart, he's talking about the body corporate and the incorporation of Washington, D.C., and the shadow federal government that really controls us. Let's continue. It is but a very few years since the existence of a corporation controlling a few $1 million was regarded as a subject of grave apprehension, and now this country already contains single organizations which wield a power represented by hundreds of millions. These bodies are the creatures of single states, but in New York, in Pennsylvania, in Maryland, in New Jersey, and not in those states alone, they are already establishing despotism which no spasmodic popular effort will be able to shake off. What is he saying? He's saying the roots of this corruption, this corporate evil slavery corruption, the roots are being sowed in 1869. In that last line, he says, people will not be able to shake this off with a popular uprising. These are deep, deep roots of evil being planted right after the Civil War. And before we continue, remember, in 1871, just 2 years after this, Washington, D.C. was incorporated, and all of our shadow identities were made as well, body corporates. Let's continue. Where, and at all times, however, they illustrate the truth of the old maxim of the common law, that corporations have no souls. Only in New York has any intimation yet been given of what the future may have in store for us, should these great powers become mere tools in the hands of ambitious, reckless men. Who could he be talking about? Probably the enemy of his father, right? Groups like Free Masons, ambitious, reckless men who are corrupt behind the scenes, right? That's my opinion. Continuing. The system of corporate life and corporate power, as applied to industrial development, is yet in its infancy. It tends always to development, always to consolidation. It is ever grasping new powers, or insidiously exercising covert influence. Sound like masonry? Even now, the system threatens the central government. Boom, that's it. What did I just say? 2 years after this, Washington, D.C. would be invented as a corporation in the Act of 1871, creating a corporation out of our government, thus allowing them to create a corporation out of you, and allowing them to create a central bank. You see, the Act of 1871 was the first domino after the Civil War, so maybe second domino, to really kick off this new world order. And Charles Francis Adams is warning us about it, which is incredible. But, just like today, apparently nobody listened. Okay. So, yeah, he says, even now the system threatens the central government. And like I just said, 2 years later, it would become incorporated, the federal government. Continuing, the Erie Railway represents a weak combination compared to those which day by day are consolidating under the unsuspecting eyes of the community. He's calling the Erie Railroadway, a massive railroad company, small beans. That's what he's saying. He's saying you have no clue the size of these corporations they're planning to create. And yeah, continuing. A very few years more, and we shall see corporations as much exceeding the Erie and the New York Central in both ability and will for corruption, as they will exceed those roads in wealth and in length of iron track. We shall see these great corporations spanning the continent from ocean to ocean, single consolidated lines, not connecting Albany with Buffalo or Lake Erie with the Hudson, but uniting the Atlantic and the Pacific, and bringing New York nearer to San Francisco than Albany once was to Buffalo. Already, let me back up a little. Where was I? Already, both building corruption. Already, the disconnected members of these future Leviathans have built up states in the wilderness and chosen their attorney senators of the United States. Now their power is in its infancy. In a very few years, they will reenact on a larger theater and on a grander scale, with every feature magnified, the scenes which were lately witnessed on the narrow stage of a single state. The public corruption is the foundation on which corporations always depend for their political power. I think we'll leave it at that. The public corruption is the foundation on which corporations always depend for their political power. Well, that's about it. Like I said, this was Charles Francis Adams, written in 1869, right after the Civil War. Title was Bull, Bear, and Company, the Robber Barons, in which he warns us of the threat of corporatism, and not just corporations in the market economy, but the corporation of our souls, the creation of body corporates. So, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon.